Thank you for all of you who are joining us. This is part 2 of our COVID-19 EU series, and I have the pleasure today of interviewing Jordi Roca, who is Director of GD Global Mobility based in Spain. Jordi, you are very much a recognized expert on employee international mobility. And I know that you also assist investors and companies developing their business in Spain. So thank you for accepting to participate. My first question is, what have been the main challenges that you have had for your clients over the COVID-19 period?
Yeah, good afternoon, Fiona. It's a pleasure to be part of the COVID-19 European Union series. I think a very interesting project, and we are delighted to participate. Well, very challenging times, definitely, for all of us, and particularly for those clients, foreign clients with employees in Spain. They have been facing an astonishing amount of new regulations from the government, impacting on mobility, impacting on employment, on the health and safety measures. So basically, sometimes it is difficult for ourselves to understand the extent to what a regulation, a new regulation impacts. Well, that's sometimes difficult. Imagine having to explain this to someone who is not familiar at all with the approach, with the legal approach in Spain. And that is very concerned about their employees because they were obviously very anxious and they wanted to make sure that everyone was compliant with the safety, security protocols, etc. And so that was probably the most special times when we spent countless hours over the phone talking to them and explaining what needed to be done, guiding on how to, for example, obtaining the public funding for temporary unemployment for their employees, or kind of helping their employees to get a flight to return to their country. That was the most remarkable time and also the most rewarding time for us. I have to say that I feel very proud of my team because they have been extremely generous in helping our clients, and I think they are appreciated.
I'm absolutely sure about that. So are there any special facilities regarding the extensions of permits that either have expired during the COVID or are about to expire in Spain?
Well, too often I'm very critical with the Spanish government and how things are dealt, but I have to say that, to be fair, they have been very proactive, very thoughtful. They have a lot of empathy for the foreigners in Spain, and they declared 4 measures, I think, that impacted tremendously well over the foreigners in Spain. The first one was to automatically extend all the work and residence permits that were about or have expired in Spain for 6 months. Okay. From the moment the state of alarm ceases, which is expected to be in half a month. So it will be, this gives the holders of residence permits 6 months to proceed with the extension of the visas. That was fantastic. Also, another measure was for the foreigners in Spain under a 90 days business basis. Again, they automatically are extended the legality of their stay in Spain for 3 months once the state of alarm ceases, and so nobody needs to worry as long as it's clear that they cannot return to their own country because of the sanitary worldwide situation that we are. The third thing was addressed to those legal residents who were at the moment outside of the Schengen areas and had a residence card about to expire. In that case, typically they will need what is called a return authorization, which is an official letter from the government authorizing them to re-enter Spain with an expired residence card. And the government declared that all those cases with a residence card expired over the past 6 months would be allowed to enter Spain without any further document. And finally, the fourth measure was to allow any foreigner to enter Spain if the purpose of the visit was to work. And this has facilitated enormously the activity of many companies. And we're talking about not only the most engineering or business people, but also people for agriculture and forestal and activities that at this time of the year were very needed.
And what do they have to prove to justify that? Or it's just a
Well,
simple
it will
letter?
depend. Yeah, it will depend on what is the purpose of the trip. If you're coming to work, a letter from your employer. If you are seconded to Spain and you are doing that from the European Union, then you will need the A1 and also a letter from the employer. If you are coming for businesses, an invitation letter. So a document, if it's possible, a public document like the A1, putting the reasons together.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And I mean, that's very proactive because it means that business will be able to return with foreign employees when they're required on projects quite quickly, I would think.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. That was a very good decision from the government that made everything easier for everybody. Absolutely.
And then what about the consulates? Are they working as usual or not yet?
Well, the consulates are working internally. They are processing legalizations or other services that they offer, but they are not receiving people. And I think that's the common case in most of the countries around the world, because it doesn't make much sense, not just to protect the public officers at the consulate, but also the rest of individuals who will be submitting documents in a room packed with other people. And so, yes, no public office is open to public in Spain. That includes both consulates outside of Spain and police stations inside of Spain.
Okay. So for visas?
Exactly. Visas are not processed at the moment. Work permits and any other type of residence permit are processed. In most cases, employees were able to travel to Spain with a work visa. But in those cases, nationals of countries which are not part of the visa waiver program and that they needed a visa to enter Spain, they have been, the process has been on hold until the consulates reopen, which, by the way, seems that will happen by mid of June.
Oh, so that's good. So things are certainly very much moving forward for Spain. Very proactive compared to everything that you've sadly had to go through. That's really excellent and very interesting. What would be your advice and suggestions right now for best practices for companies who need to ensure that their employees arrive shortly?
Yeah, as you were saying, things are moving very quick in Spain. We are in a very much positive situation that we were just 1 month ago. In still a very concerning moment and very sad moment, but in a very situation. On Saturday, President Sanchez addressed to the country and informed of two things: that it was his intention to seize the state of alarm by mid of June, and he anticipated that we will have tourists by the beginning of July. If we're going to have tourists, then most of the international mobility limitations will be progressively reduced. That's seems to be, it seems to make sense to anticipate that. And so if that is the case, best practices for companies planning to move employees to Spain will not bear as much as the limitations in Spain, as much as the difficulties they have in their own countries to obtaining documentation that is required to process an application in Spain. And other than that, I believe not only companies, but particularly companies, I think we all will have to pay a lot more, be more careful with health and safety protocols for our employees and make sure they are in a very secure and certain environment so they can focus on work. I think they will have, all of HR departments will have to focus on that.
I totally agree with you. This is something which actually keeps coming up. And I think that a lot of companies are also going to need to really show the empathy and that they believe the importance of the health and the safety protocols, because otherwise employees are not going to accept assignments abroad. It will only be if this can be guaranteed that certain mechanisms are in place. And also, it's very interesting what you were saying about the difficulties of obtaining documents, because this is something that which we keep hitting upon over the past month. Here in France and abroad as well, that one of the big issues is not actually just about work permits and visas, but it's actually right now that there are delays in obtaining the required documents from the authorities in the home countries, that these need to be legalized, apostilled, etc. So yeah, everybody's seeing that point, which I don't think we actually even thought about too much. I mean, we know that certain countries it's difficult, but we certainly were not thinking when there was the lockdown that that could be something that was going to be cause delays in our processing.
Absolutely.
As
Probably,
such.
I don't know. We have the coverage certificate from the US Social Security Agency that takes weeks to be obtained.
Weeks, if not months.
If not months, exactly. Well, let's put it on weeks. We don't want to get angry anybody. But in general, a background certificate from any country might be challenging to obtain in a given time frame, and companies need to anticipate those things.
Yes, I totally agree. Finally, my last question is, what are your recommendations for companies looking at Spain as an EU solution?
Well, my recommendation is simply go for it. Go for it. Yeah, it's just one market. Every day, this probably, Fiona, 6 years ago or 10 years ago, if we had to talk about the Vanderels visa and the Vanderels sentence and the possibility for any company to move employees within the European Union without having to request a work permit, or if we had to talk about the EU ICT, so employees processing a work permit in one country could move freely to other countries, it would take ages to understand because very few people were familiar. But now, even Britain, even the UK is accepting Vanderels visas and Vanderels situations for employees. And taking that for granted and pointing out how much progress Spain has done in terms of timing for work permits over the past years, I think Spain is a very good location. It's a very good country, and I can do nothing but recommend that.
Fantastic. So everybody, please take note. Spain is one of the countries to be considered for your EU implantation. Jordi, thank you very much. This has been extremely enjoyable and very interesting for everybody. And I'd like to wish you a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.